guys, what's up? It's Shelby and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while. I'm so sorry. I have been so unmotivated, but I finally got motivated, so let's just do it. I'm not gonna make excuses and tell you why I haven't posted, but so yeah, let's just get into it. All my brushes, excuse you. All of my brushes are very dirty. I have been needing to clean them for like a month now, so we're just gonna excuse that as well. I had a plan to do it yesterday and the day before that, and I keep saying, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll have time. Then I never do it. So anyways, let's just get right into this. The look is inspired by Amy White MUA. I'm going to be doing that somewhat like that anyways. Start gluing my eyebrows down when we talk about our case. Today's case is actually still unsolved even after, like, I think it's been 26 years now, so it's been a while. So today's case is about the O'Brien brothers, I'm pretty sure that's how you say it, and this actually takes place in Newfoundland in Canada, I believe. Yes. So I don't have much information about exactly like the family dynamics, like much about like their upbringing and their like past and stuff. I did not see very much about it, mostly just like what exactly happened on the day that they disappeared. So we are going to be talking about three brothers, the oldest being Adam, who is 14 years old at the time of his disappearance, Trevor, who was 11 at the time of the disappearance, and Mitchell, who was only 4 years old at the time. Their parents are Gary and Diana, lived in Torby, Newfoundland in Canada. And again, I don't know much about like the family, the upbringing, like the children or anything. All I really know is that they were not together. They had ended up getting a divorce. I'm not sure why her last name is different. I don't know if she didn't take his last name or if they were never married and they just split up. I don't really know. But I do know a bit about Gary, so let's talk about him because it's a whirlwind. Okay, so Gary, from what we have been told, is he's introverted and kind of shy. He is very resourceful. He's very into technology, like new technology and computers, and he really enjoys like that kind of stuff. He's also a technician or an electronic. He's an electrician, not a technician, my bad. He is a electrician. Gary is not really in the best mental state. He never really has been, from what I've seen. Like from what I've seen, he's always kind of had struggles with his mental health. I don't really have like solid proof of like this, but from what we have been told, he has had a violent past. I'm not exactly sure to like what extent, like if it's domestic violence and that's why she had left, or if it's just violent in terms of like aggression and like anger problems. But apparently he does have a passive aggression and he does have suicidal tendencies. Again, I don't have like anything to elaborate on that, like if he's tried it before or if he, you know what I mean, like I don't know. That's all I really know about it, is that he does have the tendencies. So when they did get divorced, or when they split from each other, because I'm guessing of his mental state and his past and stuff, that he did not have the boys full time. Diana did, and he just had visitations, and he usually would have visitations on Saturdays. He would get them for the day on Saturday. He'd pick them up in the morning, drop them back off at night, and that's how it was, and it was going really good. I don't know exactly when they split or anything, like if it was like recent or if it's been a while, and like, you know, I don't know. Seeing I don't have much info on the like actual past life and stuff, let's just continue on to the day of the disappearance. November 9th, 1996. It's a Saturday morning. Like I said, Gary picks up the kids Saturday morning. The boys, the two older boys, Trevor and Adam, were actually doing paper routes in the morning, and Trevor had just got a new Chicago Bulls jersey, and he was super excited to show his dad that day because he had not gotten to show it to him yet, so he was super excited about that. Adam had actually just bought his mother a birthday card because I guess her birthday was coming up, and he was really excited to give it to her. You know, it was coming up, and actually the youngest did not feel very well that day. The 4-year-old Mitchell, he was actually not feeling the best that day. And that morning, Gary had actually called Diana to tell her that he was going to be a little bit late picking up the boys than he normally was. And so Diana was like, well, listen, like, Mitchell isn't feeling very good anyway, so maybe it'd just be best if they stay here today and you can pick them up next week, or maybe she suggested like picking them up tomorrow instead on Sunday. But Gary did not like that answer. He got very irritated and upset and said, no, like, don't worry about it, I'll be there. Tell the boys to get ready, I'm on my way. So they did. The boys got ready to leave, and Gary picked them up not long later. Gary's house was about a 20-minute drive to where she lived, because he lived in Torbay, I think is how you say it, and she lived 20 minutes from there. So he picked them up and left with the boys. She said her goodbyes and everything, and they were off, and little did she know that would be the very last time she would see Gary or the three boys ever again. It was beginning to be the end of the day, so Diana was waiting for Gary to bring the boys back to her. She was waiting by the door by their usual time that he's supposed to bring the kids back, and he wasn't really showing up. He was a little bit late. So she wasn't really too worried about it, but she kind of was, because, I mean, he was late, but he never really was. From what I've seen, it was always scheduled very good. At 8 p.m. that night, she gets a call from Gary saying that she's never going to see the boys again, that he's not bringing them home, and she was never going to see them ever again, and that he had actually booby-trapped the house, so if anybody came in, the whole house would explode, pretty much. And he has made threats before to Diana that he was going to take the kids and stuff, but it never happened, so she never really took it seriously. But this time she did, because he was actually doing it pretty much. So panicked, she asked to talk to the boys because she figures that they're still alive, pretty much. She doesn't think that he hurt them or anything. And so she asked to talk to the boys, and Gary told her pretty plainly later, and then just hung up. So Diane had no idea what to do at this point. She said her whole body went into a shock, everything was numb, and she just collapsed to the floor and started crying. And her sister was actually there. Sister springs into action right away and calls the local police to tell them exactly what had just happened. They gave him Gary's address, and they made their way to Gary's house in no time. Get to Gary's house, and to their surprise, the bomb threat was very serious. He had set up 2 400-pound propane tanks that were wired to the house, so if you rang the doorbell, the whole house would explode. And the officers actually said that if they were to ring the doorbell and it explode, it would actually blow up the whole house and destroy pretty much all of the neighboring houses. That's how intense it actually was. And Diane believes that Gary had set this up like this because he was an electrician. He knew how to do stuff like this. So she wasn't really surprised that he was actually for real about it. But the cops eventually defuse the bomb and make their way inside. And when they get inside, they realize that Gary is not there and neither are any of the kids. So now they don't really know what to do because they don't know where he would have like actually taken the boys to. They don't know where they are pretty much. They figured that Gary took the boys in his 1989 gray Ford Tempo because it was missing from the house. So they assumed that Gary had taken the boys in that. So from there, they issued a missing persons report, obviously, for the boys. They set up flyers and stuff, and they also now could not find him. And so where they are in Newfoundland is actually kind of like a little island. So they know that Gary probably has not left the island because it would take him, one, it would take him a while, and two, it would be very hard because you would have to take either a plane or like a ferry to get off the island. So they were hopeful that the boys were still alive and on the island. So they set up an actual manhunt for him, a national manhunt for Gary and the boys to find them, but they were coming up with no leads. They searched the whole surrounding area. They searched everything. They extensively searched this whole area around it, but they also have to realize they don't know when Gary left, if he ever even made it to the house or not. He could have left that morning. He could have left as soon as he picked the boys up that morning, and they could have been gone for 8 hours already, and they had no idea. Constantly searched and were coming up with nothing. They could not find Gary. They could not find his car. They could not find anything pertaining to it, but they did not give up. But eventually it kind of just turned into a cold case. But the case stayed open, and about almost a year later, in October of 1997, they went and researched the area. They actually lived by this like cliff area that's about, I think, 6 miles or so from Gary's house. And they looked at this area again, and they actually found an engine in the ocean. So they took it back for testing, and they ran the serial number on it, and it actually turned out to be Gary's 1989 gray Ford Tempo. But they could not find anything else in this area though. They didn't find any other car parts. They did not find any bodies, any clothing, anything. That's all they found was the engine. All they found was the engine to the car, but they didn't find anything else. There was no other scrap metal, nothing. It's all been almost a year later, and they find this engine in the ocean 6 miles away from where they are, but they have not found anything else at all. Again, another year later, from after the after the engine was found, a woman calls in from Thunder Bay in Ontario, and this is a 47-hour drive away from where the boys were last seen, or where they think the boys were last seen, which would be Gary's house. So she calls in a tip because she saw the missing poster, right? And she goes, "Yeah, I know those boys. I babysat them one time." And they really found this credible because she knew one of the boys' nicknames, which was not given to the public at all. So they found her very credible, but this was an anonymous tip, so they could not trace it back to anybody. So they kept trying to get in contact with her and try to figure out who this woman was so that they could get more information on it, but she was not picking up. They could not figure out who this was at all. They even pled to the media to try to see if she would come forward about it, or, you know, give them more information about it, because this was now the first real, like, sighting that they had. And, like, it's really, like to babysit them is very random for it to be, like, a false statement. I feel like that is honestly probably really credible, and the police agreed with that, and they now put that as their last known location is now in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Diana believes that this is all just a ploy to get the cops away from where they actually are, to kind of trick the police into steering them in, like, the wrong direction, so that they don't find the boys or anything like that. I believe in this as well. But yeah, after 2 years of trying to find this woman, they end up just giving up on the lead. But they, like I said, they do still believe that that is the last place that the boys were, which it would have been 2 years from their actual disappearance. So the case is still an open case, though, and it is still being, like, looked into. They say they still have leads coming in even now, and they are not giving it up, and they are still looking into leads. There's been so many leads all over Canada, thousands and thousands of miles away, and some close, saying that they've seen these boys, but they haven't been able to track the boys down, so they can't really say if it's true or not. So they just keep trying and looking, and they have a $50,000 award out for anybody that has any information leading to finding the boys or finding Gary. Diana it was a rough couple years for Diana. I mean, she had lost her 3 boys, and she has no idea where they've been. She said she pretty much isolated herself. She couldn't leave the house. She was so mentally drained and exhausted and worried for her boys that she literally could not leave her own house. And eventually, you know, after a while, she kind of got herself back up and realized that she can't live like that any longer. So she ended up getting some professional help, actually, and trying to, you know, get better and, you know, lift herself back up. She went and got professional help, and she put herself into programs that help find missing kids like her kids, and spoke out and started doing something about it. Diana does believe that her boys are still very much alive, with or without Gary, but a lot of people in, like, her family and stuff don't believe the same as she does. Some of them do believe that Gary killed the boys, and we will get into those theories right now. They're like groups of theories. It's the theory that they're alive and the theory that they are passed away now. So let's start off with the theories of them being that they are deceased. So let's talk about the engine that was found in the ocean. A lot of people speculate that Gary drove off of the cliff, pretty much, you know, like suicide attempt, like a suicide with all 3 of them, and drove it in there, and they all drowned and eventually got washed away because the current there is very, very choppy, and it's a very dark sea ocean off of this cliff. And so they would have went in, and it would have pretty much destroyed the car and dragged the bodies away. But the only thing is why the engine would have came back 2 years later completely fine, being able to see the serial number on it and everything to identify it. That's the part that I just don't understand about it, I guess. Her theory is that this whole thing is, like, all of this, the whole bomb and stuff, and, like, placing the engine and stuff in there is all kind of a decoy to get the cops off of the trail, pretty much. And that he never even took them back to his house. He did it right when he picked him up and knew that the cops would go looking at the house when he didn't show up. And yeah, I believe that he did all of this, like set up all of the like the bomb and stuff that day, because he did say he was going to be late. I don't think he took the boys back to the house and then set it all up while the boys were there. I don't think he ever even went back to the house that day. I think he left with the bomb there. Because like I said, you would have had to, like, I don't know, just, it would have blown up. I feel like if the boys went there and then left and came back, like, I feel like that would have been way too risky. But we also don't know how long he's been planning this. If he woke up that morning and decided today's the day, or if he's been planning this for 6 months now, to a year, to 2 months, a week. We don't know any of that. Some people think that, like, he possibly picked them up that day, took them somewhere else, killed them somewhere else, buried them, or put them in the ocean, or, you know, threw them off the cliff with the car or something, and then killed himself, because he does have these suicidal tendencies. So I think if he was going to hurt them, he was planning on hurting himself as well. I don't think he would have just hurt the kids and, like, ran away. I think he would have committed suicide as well. But the reason I don't believe that theory either is because, again, it's been 2 years since anything was found in the ocean. They searched it that day and found nothing. Unless they just been hiding out for 2 years and then he decided to do it then. But where have they been for these 2 years? You know, it's like... And again, with the girl coming forward a year later saying that she babysat for them, it would explain that. And, you know, but then again, she came forward a year after the car parts were even found. We don't know when she babysat them, if it was yesterday, if it was a year ago, if it was 2 years ago when they first went missing, the day after they went missing, or if it was a week ago when actually she babysat them, because again, they could not get a hold of her ever again after that. And the other thing I was thinking is maybe Gary had something to do with her not answering anymore, because he heard that she called. Maybe the boys were already there and heard it and they told him, or he walked in on her telling them, and he got rid of her on his own circumstances because he heard it, and that's why they can't get a hold of her anymore. And they don't know who it is, so if there was a missing persons report out for her, they wouldn't even know who to look for, because it was an anonymous tip. Or they think maybe there's still that Gary paid off, like, one of his friends or his family members, or threatened them even to call the police to throw them off. So, like, he went on one side and had somebody in, that girl who called all the way over there, had them say that so that they would be completely thrown off of his trail. Because if he's really that smart about it, that sounds like something that could also happen. If he really had this all planned out, I have a feeling he would have had something like that to happen. So let's get on to the second part of the theories, is that they're still alive to this day. Diana, again, believes that they are still very much alive and well, and she believes that he dropped them off to, like, an Amish society, or even a cult or a religious group, and that's where they're staying, either with him or without him. Like I said, again, he made all these ploys so that people would be thrown off the trail, so that they wouldn't find him. And if it would explain a lot, because the boys are old enough now. I mean, it's not like they were young and don't remember their mother. I mean, they were 14, 11. Those two boys would have remembered their mother. They would have known, you know what I mean? They would have been able to know that kind of stuff. So if they were in an Amish group, they wouldn't have the accessibility to call her. They wouldn't have a phone. They wouldn't have technology. They wouldn't have any way to contact her. Again, with a religious group or something, they could have been brainwashed into being into it, so into it that they just gave up trying even, or they're being held there, or even, like, what I was thinking too is maybe even like underground adoption, because the other theory is that they're still alive but Gary is not. He wanted to get them away from his mother to hurt her forever, and he sent them off in an underground adoption, maybe even in the United States or somewhere overseas, and he dropped them off to them and then went and drove his car into the lake or into the ocean off the cliff, or killed himself somewhere, you know what I mean? Because that, again, could be very, very possible, because he did have the suicidal tendencies, but maybe he didn't want to hurt the children, hurt his kids, and so that's what he did. He gave them away to somebody who he knew would be taken care of, but knew that they would never be found again, and knew that Diana could not find them and they would not be able to contact her anymore. Again, it's also not very hard, especially in the 90s when this took place. It wasn't that hard to go off the grid forever. I mean, there wasn't a lot of tracking and tracing being done at that time. So if he wanted to go completely off of the grid with these kids and change his identity and stuff, it would be a little bit harder with the kids, but it also wouldn't be impossible either. Especially if he was planning this for months and months and months, even years to do this, he could have done it. And that also leads to the fact that the babies, whoever called in saying that they babysat these kids, if it was only for like a couple hours, you would think that the oldest was 14. He could have watched the kids for whatever reason, but they had a babysitter, which means they were probably with this babysitter for a couple of days, because you don't want to leave a 14-year-old alone, especially after you just technically kidnapped them, for a couple of days by themselves. So they probably were there with this babysitter for a couple of days at least. Well, maybe he was getting something together, arranging for them to be picked up by whoever, or arranging to drop them off somewhere, or even getting himself an apartment for them to live in, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's what he was doing this whole time while they were there, and they're just living their own life off the grid somewhere, or overseas now in a different country, just living life. We still have no answers. We don't know, because again, they've never been found, they've never came forward, they've never made anything. There's still tips coming in, but none of them are really credible yet to say that they were seen there, they were found here, or they were sighted in this spot. But I mean, so far there hasn't been any confirmed 100% sightings, except for the babysitter one that all the cops do believe actually is true. Adam would now be 38 years old, Trevor would be 35, and Mitchell would be 29 years old now. So I will put their pictures on the screen. If you know anything, if you've seen them, if you recognize them, you know, reach out, call somebody. It's definitely important. Even after 26 years of being missing, it is still important, especially for Diana and the kids, who probably do miss their mother dearly. Mitchell probably doesn't really even remember it, but I know the two older boys do. And if anything, I know they kept Mitchell, if they are still alive, they kept Mitchell informed about their mother, and I'm sure they never let her die out, even if they were brainwashed into anything. From what I've seen, they adored their mother and they loved their family so much. So I really don't think that they would let that die out like that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.